You wake up to silence, not the kind you're used to, not the comforting hum of your fridge or the low murmur of distant traffic. This silence is thick, oppressive, heavy, the kind of silence that wraps around you like wet wool and makes you hyper-aware of your heartbeat. The air is damp, cold, your fingers are stiff, your clothes are soaked through, and you're lying on dirt. Actual, honest dirt. The ground beneath you is uneven, littered with stones and rotting leaves. You sit up slowly, every muscle tense with confusion. The world around you is cloaked in black. Not dark, as in nighttime, with a few city lights still glowing. No, this is full blackout. Pitch. You squint into it, trying to make sense of the shapes. Slowly, outlines emerge. Trees, branches, maybe even the faint shimmer of firelight, far off through the forest. You don't know where you are, or when. Instinctively, your hand fumbles for your phone. The screen lights up 3% battery. No bars, no signal. Just a lock screen showing the date and time like a cruel joke. It's the last flicker of the world you knew, and it already feels like it's slipping away. Then comes the smell. Wood smoke. Wet leaves. A faint musk. Manure. Nothing artificial. Nothing chemical. It's the scent of a world that has never seen bleach. Never known electricity. Never heard of you. Welcome to medieval England. And this isn't the fantasy version you read about in books or watched on TV. There are no gallant knights riding white horses, no picturesque castles in the distance. Just damp mud cold and danger. Real immediate danger. You don't know how you got here. No one dropped you off. No warning, no guidebook, no time travel tutorial. Just plop, and you're in the 1300s. And now, you've got maybe 10 minutes to not get killed. First rule, don't panic. Second rule, definitely don't let anyone see you like this. Because here's the thing. People in the Middle Ages weren't necessarily afraid of strangers, but they were very interested in them. And if you walk into a village wearing your modern clothes and talking like a confused tourist, you'll attract attention. Not helpful attention. The kind that ends with someone tying you to a post and asking which demon dropped you off. So you move. Slowly, quietly. The trees around you aren't wild, not untouched. These woods have been cut, foraged, hunted in. Firewood is a commodity. Every stick, every branch might be claimed by someone. Land isn't just land, it's owned. If you're caught taking so much as a twig and can't prove you're a tenant, you could be accused of theft. And theft in this era might cost you a hand. Still, you head toward the light. Eventually, a road appears, if you can call it that. It's not paved, not even cobbled, just packed mud streaked with cart tracks, studded with puddles, and laced with yesterday's manure. And your shoes. Yeah, they're a problem. Modern, synthetic, screaming not from here with every step. So you do what feels right in the moment you take them off. Socks, too. They'll only raise more eyebrows. You tuck your phone deep in your bag. You can't use it. You shouldn't use it. It's a beacon of weirdness you can't afford. You take off your hoodie. You bury it under some brush. You rub dirt into your skin. Pull your hair back in the roughest, most rustic style you can manage. What's left is a thermal undershirt that maybe could pass as a linen tunic if no one looks too closely. The town is up ahead. A flicker of torches. The smell of smoke thickens. You keep your head down. A gate looms in the distance. Just a simple wooden structure, not fortified, not guarded, more like a fence with a doorway. These gates aren't for defense. They're to keep animals and thieves from wandering in at night. Some towns have curfews marked by a bell. Others just bar the doors until morning. You're lucky. It's just before dawn. The sky is barely shifting to blue. You blend into a group approaching the town, a few peasants, maybe a pilgrim. No one questions you. That's a small miracle. The streets are narrow, crooked, muddy. Houses lean like they're tired of standing upright. Their walls are wattle and daub, woven sticks covered in clay and straw. Roofs sag under the weight of thatch. Smoke curls from low chimneys. You hear roosters, a baby crying, someone coughing like it's been years. The ground stinks. Everything stinks. The town smells like fire waste sweat and sour beer. Chickens dart across your path. A dog limps by, gnawing something that might have been a boot or a rat. People sleep differently here, not the 8-hour block you're used to. They have first sleep, then wake in the middle of the night to pray, stir the fire, maybe chat. Then second sleep. It's a thing. You didn't get either. You pass a forge. Blackened walls, sparks flying. A man hammers something on an anvil with grim determination. Further down, a cook shop. You smell onions and something worse, maybe meat, maybe not. It's hard to tell. Nobody talks to you. That's good, because they will eventually. And when they do, they'll ask, "Who are you?" In this time, nobody is just a nobody. Everyone belongs somewhere to a lord, a parish, a guild, a family. Being unclaimed makes you suspicious. Being alone makes you vulnerable. So you invent your story. You're a pilgrim. It's the safest option. Pilgrims are everywhere. No one questions them too much. You say you're headed to Canterbury, that you're walking to the shrine of St. Thomas Becket. It's vague enough, old enough, familiar enough. And if you say it with the right tone of suffering, people might just leave you alone. You bow slightly when someone glances your way. Not too much, just enough to look humble. You don't shake hands. That's not a thing here. You keep your mouth shut. Your accent's all wrong. Your grammar's worse. You smile faintly. You look tired. A woman offers you bread. You take it with both hands. It's dense, dry. Mostly rye with something bitter tucked inside. Probably beans. Maybe regret. Still it's warm. And it's food. You nod. You chew slowly. You make it look like gratitude. Congratulations. You've survived your first hour. You're someone else now. A stranger with a half-truth and a borrowed cloak. But here, that's how it starts. Not with proof. Not with ID. With a story. And if you can keep telling it right, maybe, just maybe, you'll live long enough to tell another. The story you chose, Pilgrim, is holding up. For now. A stable boy asks where you're headed. You pause. Not because you don't have the answer, but because your brain is still rebooting from the cold, and your stomach is trying to digest a medieval hockey puck masquerading as bread. Canterbury, you say finally. It's the only destination you can think of. You're not even sure why that came to mind. Maybe from that one college class on Chaucer. Maybe from that documentary you watched at 2 a.m. during a flu. But you say it with enough conviction that he just nods and goes back to flinging straw. That's all it takes sometimes, confidence. Conviction. You keep walking, doing your best not to draw attention. You need to get somewhere people won't ask too many questions, somewhere quiet, maybe a monastery. Pilgrims had certain rights. Not many, not universal, but enough that some doors might open. If you knock gently and look holy. That's the thing you keep reminding yourself. You're not here to thrive, just survive. Just get through the next hour, the next interaction, the next suspicious glance. The lie you told the stable boy has to grow now. You need backstory, details, reasons. You start building it in your head. You're from a village far in the north, somewhere small, unremarkable, full of fields and fog. Your cousin fell ill, and your family sent you in their place. You're walking to Canterbury for a blessing, a cure, a sign. You're doing penance for what? You'll decide that later. Something vague, but serious. Not adultery. That's too juicy. Something dull and forgettable. Pride, maybe. Or working on a Sunday. You don't even realize you're rehearsing until you're whispering lines under your breath like a medieval drama student. The people passing you don't notice. Or they pretend not to. Everyone talks to themselves here. Prayer, penance, madness. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. Eventually, you make it to a small priory, a modest religious house just outside the edge of town. A monk in a gray robe greets you at the door. You tell him your story. You keep it short, simple. You say you've walked for weeks, that you're tired, that you heard the brothers here were kind. He doesn't smile, but he doesn't turn you away either. He waves you inside and motions to a patch of straw in the corner of a cold hall. It smells like mildew and old shoes. 3 other pilgrims are already there. One is snoring loud enough to shake the beams overhead. Another mutters in his sleep, twitching like he's fighting demons. The third stares at nothing, lips moving, eyes wet. You lie down. You pull the borrowed cloak around your shoulders and try not to move too much. You can feel things crawling. You don't want to know what. You think you'll never sleep, but exhaustion is stronger than fear. Eventually, you pass out. The next morning, you're woken by a bell. It's not your alarm. There's no snooze button. It's a real bell iron, and loud and judgmental. You jolt upright momentarily, forgetting where you are. Then it hits you all over again. Right. Middle Ages, no phone, no friends, no backup. You're not dead. That's something. The monk from last night doesn't say much, just hands you a chunk of bread, a wooden spoon, and a bowl of pottage. You've seen more appetizing things in dog bowls, but you eat every bite and you don't ask for more. You thank him with a nod, remembering not to speak unless necessary. Your voice still sounds too clean. Pilgrims don't linger. That's the rule. Charity is charity, but it has limits. After a few hours of sweeping the yard and moving sacks of grain, you can barely lift. You're encouraged politely but firmly to continue your journey. So you walk. No clear destination, just the road ahead. You try to remember everything you've ever read about the Middle Ages, not the castles and dragons part, the real stuff, the weird, sticky, uncomfortable details. Like how most people never traveled more than a few miles from where they were born. How markets happened once a week. How drinking water could kill you. How soap was rare and laughter even rarer. You think about all the things you took for granted. Microwaves, toothpaste, emergency rooms. GPS, clean socks. You think about how much of modern life is designed to keep you safe, healthy, comfortable. Here, none of that exists. Here, survival is a daily job. By mid-morning, you're following a group of actual pilgrims. They're heading in the general direction of Canterbury. They don't ask who you are. One of them sneezes so hard he almost falls over. No one reacts. You assume that's normal. One woman walks with a limp. Another coughs every few steps. A man with one eye hums quietly to himself. A tune that might be a hymn, or just something to keep away the silence. You fall in behind them. You mimic their pace, their posture, their silence. No one questions it. That's the trick. You're learning. Don't be different. Don't be interesting. Be invisible. They stop at a weigh house, Something like a medieval motel, but grimier. A small fire, a pot of something boiling that smells like onions and regret. The keeper asks for a coin. You don't have one. You mumble something about penance and devotion. He scowls, but lets you sit near the edge of the fire. Not for free. He'll probably tell the next person that you owe him a favor. But for now, it's warmth. That's enough. You eat something that tastes like boiled bread and bone. You pretend it's fine. You pretend you've eaten worse. That night, a man in the group tells a story. Something about a dream his cousin had. He says God spoke to her. No one questions it. Someone else says they saw a relic that bled. Another mentions a saint who healed a woman by blinking. You nod like it all makes sense. You add nothing. Just listen. When they ask your story, you keep it vague. A brother, a village, a sin, a dream of Canterbury. It's the safest lie you know. You say it quietly. You look down. You press your palms together as if in prayer. They nod. One even squeezes your shoulder. That night, you sleep beside the fire, curled like a dog. You don't sleep well, but you sleep, and that's enough. Tomorrow, the road continues. You're still alive. You're still pretending. You're still a pilgrim. You wake up to the sound of someone retching. It's still dark, the fire just a memory. One of the older pilgrims is hunched over near the edge of the yard, coughing up what sounds like part of his soul. You think about asking if he's okay. You don't. You're learning. Instead, you stand, stretch your stiff limbs, and feel every joint protest like you're 70 years older than you were last week. Your legs ache. Your back's a mess. Your stomach feels like it forgot what a full meal even means. But you're alive. And in this world, that's a win. The group you walked with yesterday is already packing up. They don't say goodbye. No hugs, no handshakes, just nods and slow movements. You're not offended. It's the way here. You decide to stay behind. Not because you like the way house, but because your feet are blistered and your knees feel like boiled rope. You need rest. Maybe even a job, something to trade for food, or a place to sleep that doesn't involve pretending to be a saint in training. You spot a woman sweeping the yard. Rough hands, tired eyes. She watches you, but doesn't speak. After a few awkward seconds, you speak first. Need help. You don't know if she understands your words exactly, but the tone is clear enough. She nods once and gestures to a pile of chopped wood. You spend the next hour moving firewood. It's damp, full of splinters, and heavier than it looks. But she doesn't stop you, which means you're doing it right. And when you finish, she gives you a hunk of bread and a ladle of thin soup. You thank her with a smile. She doesn't smile back, but she doesn't scowl either. That's practically affection. After the meal, she speaks. Slow, measured, a mix of English and what might be a regional dialect. But the meaning comes through. Need firewood and herbs. Woods yonder. She points toward the edge of the forest behind the house. You nod. You've become a forager. The forest in medieval England is not untouched wilderness. It's not a fantasy glen full of magical creatures. It's a resource. Every tree, every branch, every mushroom might belong to someone. The crown, a noble, a monastery. It's all owned. Even the fallen wood might have a price. And you're not from here. You're not a tenant or a servant. You have no papers, no badge, no name anyone knows. You have to be careful. You gather only what's clearly dead. Small branches, dry sticks, twigs that look like they've already been stepped on. You don't cut anything. You don't dig. You don't even look too long at a tree in case someone's watching. You keep to the edge of the woods. You walk slowly, eyes on the ground, sack open. It's not glamorous. It's survival. As you work, your mind drifts. You think about your old life, your real life, office chairs, microwaves, grocery stores, your favorite coffee mug with the chipped handle. It feels so far away now, like a dream you had and almost forgot. Then a squirrel darts across your path and you nearly drop your bundle. You breathe out, trying to calm your nerves. You're jumpier than you expected, because this forest isn't just quiet, it's watching. By midday, your sack is half full. Your fingers are scraped, and your legs itch from walking through brambles. You stop near a tree stump and take a break. Bread again. Always bread. It's hard enough to knock someone out with, but it's food. There's water nearby, a stream trickling through the undergrowth. You sip from your hands, tasting dirt and something metallic. Probably not ideal, but better than dehydration. You try not to think about where it came from, or what's upstream. A patch of mushrooms catches your eye. They look harmless, small, white, clean. But you remember enough about foraging to know you don't know enough. One mistake, and your next chapter might involve seizures and foam. You walk away. You find some herbs, maybe. The woman gave you names: mugwort, plantain, comfrey. You recognize too, maybe. You pick carefully, wrapping them in strips of old cloth. They smell sharp, bitter, medicinal. You hope that's a good sign. On your way back, you hear something. A crunch, a snap. Leaves moving. You freeze. Could be a deer, could be a person. You don't wait to find out. You crouch low, moving slowly, keeping to the shadows. Eventually, the noise fades. Whatever it was, it's gone. You let out a breath you didn't realize you were holding. Back in town, that woman is waiting. You hand her the herbs and firewood. She inspects them without speaking, then drops a turnip into your hand. Payment. You say thank you. She nods. You think you catch the hint of a smile. Maybe. That night you sleep in the barn. It's not luxurious, but there's straw. There are cows. Their breath is warm. One of them snores. You don't complain. You lie there chewing the raw turnip. It's bitter and tough. It tastes like dirt and defiance. You think about the forest, about how quiet it was, about how dangerous. You're starting to realize something. The Middle Ages are not trying to kill you on purpose, but they're definitely not trying to help you either. There's no safety net, no backup plan, no reset. If you make a mistake, you deal with it. If you break something, it stays broken. That night, as you drift off listening to the soft breath of cows and the occasional mouse skittering through the hay, you realize something else. You made it through the day, and in this world, that's enough. You really thought you were ready. You had read the articles, downloaded the PDFs, even watched a few painfully long YouTube videos about Old English grammar. You practiced lines in your car like an overzealous reenactor. God du, you whispered proudly into the mirror. Ich kommen from Feoren. You were ready to blend in. You were going to fake your way into history. But now, you're here standing in a cobbled market square with smells you can't identify and people speaking in what sounds like angry gravel, and you realize something terrifying. You don't understand a word. Not one. It's not just the accent. It's not just the slang. It's the fact that they're not speaking what you studied. You had picked Old English, thought it was the safe bet. Anglo-Saxon, Beowulf stuff. That made sense. But Beowulf was written over 400 years ago from where you're standing. And the people around you, they're not speaking Beowulf. They're speaking Middle English, the kind that barely made it into books. The kind that got bent, stretched, twisted by Norman French, and squashed by regional dialects. The kind no one wrote down unless they were making fun of it. And here it is coming at you in full, nasal, frantic speed. You try to follow a conversation between two traders. They're arguing, you think. You can't tell if they're haggling over fish or accusing each other of curses. One of them points. Shouts something that includes Reeve and soak in it. You blink. You're sure those were English words. Just not in that order. Not in any order you recognize. You try responding. You say something about being sore from travel. The man squints. Be ye daft or Flemish. You mumble something and shuffle away before he decides daft is the answer. That's when it hits you. You can't talk your way out of this. You thought disease or violence would get you. Or maybe the food. But no, it's your mouth. The second you open it, you give yourself away. You look like a local. You even smell like one by now. But you don't talk like one. And here that's worse than looking different. You try again with someone else, a baker. You want to buy what you think is bread. You point. She squints. 2 farthings. You panic. You hold out your handful of coins. She picks 4 slaps, your hand takes a 5th. You blink. Then she mutters, no more. And yestern's bread for you, as she hands you a brick that smells like damp misery. You nod. Cheers. Everyone freezes. You realize your mistake too late. Cheers doesn't exist here. Not the way you meant it. To them, you might as well have shouted an incantation. Someone chuckles. Another frowns. You clear your throat and mumble, God give you good morrow, like you meant to say that the whole time. They relax. A little. You learn a new rule. Don't say anything you haven't heard someone else say first. You start miming more. A lot more. Hungry. Rub your belly. Tired point. At the sun and yawn. Need help. Just raise your eyebrows and look pitiful. This isn't communication. It's medieval charades, but it works. A few hours later, in the shadow of the parish church, you overhear 2 children arguing over a lost sheep. Nay, I faint saw it go by. The Breck, says the older one. Your eyes be gone, fool, spits the younger. You couldn't feel more alien if you had antennae. You start cataloging phrases in your head. Fain means willing or glad. Breck might be a field or a hill. Or maybe not. You don't know anymore. You don't even know what century your ears are in. You also start noticing something else. Something deeper. Class has a sound. The richer folks, merchants, priests, nobles, they speak smoother, slower. Their words are clipped. They're Latin precise. You can tell they've read things. You can tell they've been told how to speak. The poor they bark. Their vowels stretch. Their consonants punch. You can tell who sleeps in a bed and who sleeps on straw just by how they say the word bread. You try saying pardon to a merchant. He nods politely. You say it to a stable boy. He spits. You try Latin next desperate to sound learned. Big mistake. A friar hears you. He asks where you trained. You panic. You say Rome. He frowns. Starts asking questions about church councils and saints you've never heard of. You fake a cough, limp away. You add a new rule, no Latin, unless you're repeating a prayer, and even then, only if someone else says it first. By the end of the day, you're exhausted. Your brain hurts. Your mouth is dry. Your confidence is gone. You eat something that might have been a turnip at some point. You nod through 3 conversations you didn't understand. You accidentally call a man's wife his goat. You apologize so much that forgive me becomes your default greeting. But you're still here. No one's called for a priest. No one's tried to stab you. No one's thrown you out. You're not blending in, not yet, but you're fading a little. And in the Middle Ages, that's a start. It starts with a cramp, not a dramatic one, just a quiet gnawing pain in your gut. Maybe it's the bread. Maybe it's yesterday's turnip. Maybe it's that stream you drank from in the forest, the one that looked clean enough, but probably doubled as a foot bath for something with hooves. You ignore it. You shouldn't have. Within an hour, you're doubled over behind a pigsty, clutching your stomach like it's trying to escape. You're sweating and freezing at the same time. Your vision blurs. Your hands shake. You can't tell if you're dying or just wish you were. This is not metaphorical discomfort. This is real medieval bacterial horror. You tried to be careful. You avoided color in food. You boiled water when you could. You didn't touch anything that buzzed, moved, or smelled like it once had ambition. But this isn't about one bad bite. This is everything. The air, the soil, the water, the spoons, the hands that made your food, the cloth that wiped those hands. This is a microbial zoo, and you're the newest exhibit. Your body was raised on pasteurized milk and chlorinated water. Your idea of contaminated was a salad left out too long. You were not built for this. Your immune system is panicking. It's not just food poisoning. It's a total system freakout. Pottage. That's your first suspect. It's not soup. It's not stew. It's survival slop. A grayish mush made from grains roots and whatever didn't rot that week. They just keep adding to it day after day. Same pot, same crusty wooden spoon. The broth of despair. You remember thinking it tasted like onions and boiled lint. Now, it feels like it's trying to claw its way back out. You try to sip water. Bad idea. You try to sit up. Worse idea. You curl up under your borrowed cloak, pressed against the cold stone wall of a friary. You don't care who sees you. You're shaking. You're leaking from everywhere. You're scared. No doctors. No antibiotics. No electrolytes. Just straw, mud, and the vague hope that this is the kind of sickness you get over. A nun finds you sometime after sunrise. You're half conscious, half hallucinating. You try to stand. Your legs fold. You hit the ground like wet laundry. She kneels beside you, lifts your chin with a hand that smells like vinegar and herbs and mutters something in Latin. She doesn't scream, doesn't panic, just sighs, pulls something from a pouch and stuffs it into your mouth. It's bitter, horrible, like bark soaked in sweat. You try to spit it out. She slaps your cheek gently and says something that probably means swallow it or I'll make sure you wish you had. You swallow. You're not in the infirmary, not exactly. That's for people who belong. You're near it on a straw mat by the wall, close enough for someone to check on you, far enough that if you die it won't mess with the real patients. A girl brings you broth. You can't tell if she's 12 or 35. Medieval hard living makes age slippery. You sip. It stays down. Miracle. You sleep, you wake, you sweat, you shiver, you pray. Not because you believe, but because it's something to do between waves of nausea. You hear someone nearby coughing, deep, wet, constant. You pray harder. Here's something you didn't fully appreciate before germ theory doesn't exist yet. They don't know about bacteria. Not really. Illness comes from bad air or an imbalance in the humors, blood phlegm, yellow bile, black bile. Depending on the theory, you might be treated with herbs, vomit-inducing potions, or leeches. Yes, leeches. You're lucky. This nun skipped the leeches. You sip broth and chew on a root that tastes like dirt and death. You don't ask what it is. You don't want to know. You're not alone. Half the town is sick. Coughs, fevers, rashes, open wounds. The friary smells like herbs and blood. It's a miracle anyone survives. And yet, people do. They get better. Not always. Not quickly. But they endure. You realize something while lying in that dusty corner wrapped in wool and shame. Medieval healthcare is horrific, but medieval care is not. The nun could have left you. The girl could have ignored you. The friar could have kicked you out, but they didn't. Not because you earned it, not because you paid for it, because in this time, charity is sacred. You spend 2 days, half awake, wrapped in a blanket that might once have been white. You lose track of time. The bell rings, then rings again. You learn the hours by accident. Matins lauds prime terce sext. Nun vespers complain. You don't know the prayers. You mutter syllables to fit in. You dream strange dreams of fire of a goat with glowing eyes of your old apartment's shower. You wake up groaning and alive. By the third day, you can sit up. You sweep the yard slowly, just to prove you can move. The friar nods, says nothing, hands you another root. You chew, you live. Statistically, that makes you lucky. In this era, sickness kills. Often. The average life expectancy is about 35, mostly because so many children die young. Adults who survive childhood might live to 50, and those who fall ill, well, some recover, some vanish. The world doesn't pause for the sick. It limps forward, with or without you. You thank the nun in broken Latin. She presses a cross into your palm and says something about mercy and dust. You nod. That sounds about right. You're not better, but you're alive. And in medieval England, that's all that counts. You wake up with a familiar feeling. Not hunger, that's always there. Not cold, that's your default now. It's absence. Something is missing. You sit up on the straw mat, stiff, itchy, permanently damp, and start patting the ground around you. Under your cloak. Beneath the mat. Under the sleeping man next to you, who smells like mushrooms and coughs like he's choking on ghosts. Your satchel is gone. Not misplaced. Gone. The one with your last pair of socks. 2 silver coins. A small piece of chocolate. And your compass. Your entire backup plan vanished. You sit still for a moment. Not in shock. Not anymore. Just calculating how many mistakes you made in the last 24 hours. 1, you let your guard down because you were feeling better. 2, you slept too hard. 3, you started to think you were blending in. You look around. It's morning in a town that doesn't know your name and wouldn't care if you collapsed in its gutter. A bell rings. A vendor yells about onions like he's calling troops to battle. Somewhere nearby, someone laughs. Not you. You try reporting the theft. First to a woman sweeping her step. She shrugs and mutters something like, "First time, eh?" Then to a friar. He nods, makes the sign of the cross, and says something about divine will. You say the word stolen to a baker. He laughs so hard, he nearly drops a tray of dense medieval sadness pretending to be muffins. Not because he doesn't believe you, because, of course, it was stolen. What did you think was going to happen? This isn't your world. There's no police, no cameras, no security, no Find My Satchel app. There's the bailiff technically, but he doesn't care about missing bags. His job is to make sure taxes get paid and fights at the tavern don't turn into funerals. You are not on his to-do list. Here, theft isn't a crime. It's a reflex. You start watching people more closely. Where do they keep their valuables? Answer on them, always. Pouches are tied to belts and hidden under tunics. Coins are sewn into hems. Even nuns check their purses 3 times an hour. You saw a merchant tap his coin pouch every 10 steps like it was a nervous tick. That's not paranoia here. That's survival. Knives aren't for show. Every peasant has one. Every child might. Not to fight, but to cut bread, whittle sticks, and stab anyone trying to take their dinner. Wealth isn't just displayed, it's defended. And you walked around like a festival booth. Eventually, you return to the friary. You tell your story again, with more emotion this time. You add in a few coughs, a hint of despair, a dramatic pause for flavor. Brother Thomas, or maybe it's Brother Gregory, you're still not sure, listens. Then disappears into a side room. He comes back holding something wrapped in cloth. He places it in your palm. A knife. Small, rusted, dull. The handle is cracked. The blade looks like it lost a fight with time, but it fits in your hand. You try to give it back. He doesn't let go. He makes a motion palm flat knife up, then walks away. You get the message. Keep it with you, always. This is your initiation now. You've been sick. You've been robbed. And now you're armed. That's not unusual. In fact, it's expected. Justice here isn't preventative, it's theatrical. When thieves get caught, rare, the punishment is memorable. Pillories, public beatings, mutilation, branding, hanging. But that's the exception. Most crimes go unpunished because no one sees them, no one reports them, and no one has time to chase down a thief when they have to carry water 5 times a day just to avoid dying of thirst. So the law becomes personal. You don't trust strangers. You don't take your eyes off your bread. You sleep with your pouch under your rib cage. You become your own security system. You test your new knife that evening, not on a person, on a loaf of bread so dense it could be used as a weapon. It barely cuts. You don't care. It's not for slicing. It's for signaling. You're no longer unarmed. You're not a threat, but you're not a target either. You spend the next few days learning new habits. You tie your coins inside your tunic. You stuff your food in the toe of your spare sock. You keep one hand on your belt when walking through crowds. And you practice what a pickpocket told you in a tavern. Yes, a pickpocket. After he lifted your spoon, laughed, and handed it back. Walk like you've got nothing, he said, or everything. You chose the former. You lower your shoulders. You scuff your steps. You cough sometimes just to seem pitiful. You've become a specialist in preemptive destitution. Markets are the worst. Too loud, too packed, too tempting. Crowds create cover. Distraction breeds opportunity. Every juggler, every preacher, every dancing dog creates a perfect bubble for someone to relieve you of your belongings. And they will. Theft is priced into everything. The baker knows 3 loaves will vanish today. The butcher keeps his coins under a pile of pig fat. The tanner keeps a club behind the stall. Even the friars keep their better robes locked away. You're not angry anymore. You're adjusting. That's what this world demands. You meet a man by the well, gray beard, knife scar down his jaw, missing teeth and a few fingers. He offers you half a cabbage and a story. He doesn't ask for anything in return. You eat the cabbage. You listen to the story. You leave with all your belongings. You call that a good day. Not all thieves are desperate. Some are professionals. There's an entire underground economy. Cut purses in the markets, fence traders in scrap shops, lookouts pretending to beg. Even churchyards get hit during sermons. No one's safe, especially not someone like you. So you adapt. You nod instead of smile. You avoid groups. You count your steps. You listen for footsteps behind you. And at night, you sleep with one hand on your pouch and the other on your knife. You're in a tavern, or something like a tavern. A smoky room with uneven tables and a fire pit that barely does its job. The food is warm. The bread is only mildly stale. The stew doesn't taste like death. You've started to feel, for just a moment, something dangerous. Comfort. A woman even smiled at you as she poured your second bowl. Not a warm smile, not a flirty smile. Just a smile that said, "You're not the worst thing I've seen today." You start to believe maybe you're getting the hang of this century. And then you make the mistake. You sit at the wrong table. You choose it because it's close to the fire and your toes still feel like icicles. There are 3 men already there, each eating silently. None of them speaks. So you figure safe enough. Wrong. One stops chewing. Another lowers his spoon with exaggerated calm. The third, an older man with shoulders like boulders and hands that have definitely ended arguments, just stares at you. Not with rage, with certainty. He doesn't say a word. He doesn't have to. You stand up, slowly. You take your bowl and walk to the far bench by the door where the wind creeps in under the wall and your stew cools faster than your nerves. Nobody tells you what you did wrong. You already know. Medieval England isn't just cold hungry and full of unfiltered disease. It's also structured, deeply, invisibly, and instinctively. You thought you were learning to blend in. You were only learning the surface. Now you're seeing the layers. Where you sit, where you stand, who you bow to, who you never ever touch. Those aren't choices. They're rules. You bowed too deeply to a merchant's wife yesterday. She laughed. Her guard didn't. You spoke too loudly to a young servant this morning. He spit in your pottage. Nobody blinked. Hierarchy here isn't just social. It's survival. Everyone plays their part. Lords command. Knights swagger. Guildsmen puff their chests like roosters in linen. Peasants scurry. Servants vanish. And you're a blank page. And that's the most dangerous thing to be. A man named Will finds you outside the blacksmith's stall, rubbing your hands together for warmth. He looks at you like someone glancing at a broken wheel. Not angry, just tired. You're not from here, he says. You almost deny it. He smirks. Walks too loose, head too high. You don't flinch when folks raise their voice. You say nothing. Don't worry, they'll fix that. He tells you the rules. Not all of them, that would take years. Just enough to keep you alive until Sunday. Don't touch anyone in silk, he says. Not even if they're choking. You blink. What if they need help? He shrugs. Pray for them. He explains color codes. Blue and purple reserved for nobility. Green is fine, but only if it's dull. Linen's okay if it looks like it's never seen water. Yours doesn't. He points to your walk. You don't move like you've ever been hit for moving wrong. That'll change, he says. You believe him. Later that day, you try to edge closer to the town's public well. Water is everything here, and it's warm in the sun. You step forward, ahead of a girl no older than 13, dragging a wooden bucket as big as her torso. An older woman yells. You don't catch the words. You catch the tone. Everyone turns. The girl glares at you. Where's your badge? She asks. You don't have one. Apprentices wear them. Little tokens or stitched signs to show who they belong to. If you don't have one, you don't belong to anyone. If you don't belong to anyone, you're beneath everyone. You step back. She doesn't thank you. She doesn't need to. You start watching more carefully. Not just what people wear, but how they wear it, how they bow, who they make space for, who makes space for them. Eye contact is its own hierarchy. Nobles don't look at merchants. Merchants don't look at peasants. Peasants don't look at anyone. You look at everyone, like you're trying to subtitle reality. You stop. You lower your gaze. Soften your voice. Mumble more. You start saying, "My lord," even when your throat burns doing it. Eventually, people stop staring. They just look past you, like your furniture. You've never been so relieved. There's a strange benefit to this new invisibility. You overhear things, whispers in corners, confessions under breath, plans murmured between wine-soaked lips. You start learning how the town works, not from books or lessons, but from gossip. Who's been sleeping where? Who's been stealing grain? Who's hiding debts from the tax collector? Who hates the priest but pays him anyway? You collect stories like coins. You don't use them. You just know. And that makes you dangerous. Not powerful, just aware. Enough to avoid certain streets. Enough to nod at the right moment. Enough to not ask why the butcher's boy limps every Wednesday. But invisibility has a cost. You're tired, always. Not from hunger, not from blisters. From the performance. Every step. Every word. Every look. Measured. Muted. Watched. You dream of signs, labels, name tags. You dream of a world where you can say what you are and not get hit for it. Here you never know where you stand. You're not a noble. You're not a servant. You're not a guildsman or a priest. You're not even a real pilgrim anymore. You're a shadow in someone else's story. And even that's a risk. One night, a boy bumps into you near the friary steps. He mutters, "Watch it, lowborn," and walks on. You should be offended. You should correct him. But you feel something strange instead. Relief. He thinks he knows what you are. And in this world, being mistaken for something is safer than being seen as nothing. You're sitting on a low stone wall, chewing something that claims to be bread. It's dry rough, and tastes vaguely of smoke and regret. But it's food. You've stopped questioning texture, or flavor, or origin. You chew slowly, watching the market stir to life around you. That's when you make the mistake. A small one, harmless in your world, deadly in this one. You take out your compass, just for a second, just to check your bearings. You'd buried something out in the woods 2 days ago, your backup stash. You want to know which direction to walk when the time comes. You figured it wouldn't hurt to glance, to peek, to feel like you still had some link to logic and order. You flip the lid. The needle spins once, then settles. That's when a boy walking past stops in his tracks. He stares at the compass, eyes wide. "Is that a jewel?" he asks, voice high, curious. You snap it shut. Too late. He's already turning, already shouting for someone. His uncle, maybe. A neighbor. A street merchant. It doesn't matter. Within minutes, you've got a small crowd forming. Curious faces. Suspicious voices. Someone mutters something about sorcery. Someone else says the word Eastern. A third person just crosses themselves and backs away. You don't wait to see how the crowd evolves. You walk away. Casual. Calm. Absolutely not at a pace that could be described as fleeing. Just brisk. You make it to the friary wall and lean there panting. Not from running, from realization. You forgot the rule. Never look interesting. Even something as small as a compass mundane in your time becomes a beacon here. Not because it's threatening, because it doesn't belong. Medieval people don't have a category for it. And when people can't categorize something, they fear it. Or worse, they admire it. Either way, it's attention. And attention is your enemy. You bury the compass that night. Back in the woods. Deep this time. You dig with a flat rock until your fingers are raw. You wrap the compass in linen. You bury the protein bar too. It's not worth the risk. You keep the matches, but only because you can fake a story about Flint. You whisper to yourself as you work, not in English, not in Latin, just noise, anything to drown out the panic. The next day, a priest finds you, not the angry kind, the curious kind, too curious. He leans against the wall next to you, watching children chase a chicken in the mud. "You're not from around here," he says casually. You smile, say the line you've rehearsed, "I go where the Lord leads." He chuckles. "And does the Lord also give you toys that spin without touch?" You say nothing. He's smiling, but it's the kind of smile someone gives before testing you. He asks where you were born. You say far north. He asks if pilgrims from the north usually carry polished discs with moving needles. You try to change the subject. He doesn't let you. This is what danger sounds like here. Not shouting, not swords, just questions. Because questions lead to stories. And your story is fragile. Held together with borrowed thread. You deflect. You cough. You limp slightly. He watches all of it, then nods and walks away. That's worse than if he'd threatened you. He's thinking, and thinking in this world leads to bad ends. Let's be clear, you're not being paranoid. Suspicion is a survival skill. This isn't a modern society where oddness gets shrugged off as eccentricity. This is a world that still burns people for having the wrong dreams. They don't need evidence, just vibes. If you seem strange enough for long enough, that's enough. You saw it last week. A woman chased out of the square because someone said she muttered near a dead chicken. That was all it took. They said she cursed it. You didn't see her again. You bury more things now. Not just objects, parts of yourself. You bury your posture. You slump more. You bury your expressions. You stop smiling unless someone else smiles first. You bury your memories, the phrases, the idioms, the words that don't translate. You bury the habit of reaching for your phone every time you get bored, because boredom is now a luxury you don't allow yourself. You can't afford to daydream. That's how accidents happen. You pick up a new phrase, "I go where the Lord leads." It's perfect. It means nothing and everything. If someone asks where you're going, there's your answer. If someone asks where you're from, same thing. If someone asks what you do, Repeat it again, but slower. It makes people pause. Makes them feel like you're saying something deep. Mystery buys time. Time buys safety. You see another outsider once, not a real one, not a time traveler, but someone new. A woman in sandals. In winter, her cloak is too new, too clean. She holds herself wrong like she expects people to move for her. She walks up to a vendor and asks the price of a pie. In Latin. Perfect. Schoolbook Latin. The vendor squints. Everyone around her shifts. You step back slowly. She'll either figure it out or she won't. She's not your problem. Not anymore. You sleep with the knife closer now. Your pouch, under your tunic. You keep your face dirty, your hands rough, your voice low. You tell people you're going to Santiago. You've never seen a map of Santiago, but you say it like you mean it. And that's what matters here. Not truth, conviction, and above all, invisibility. You're getting better at this. Not thriving, not winning, but surviving. You wake before the bells now. You know the rhythm, the scrape of wooden bowls in the priory kitchen, the shuffle of boots in the mud, the way the sky bleeds light before sound returns. You've stopped jumping at every noise. You've stopped blinking when someone coughs. You flinch less when someone shouts. You've become a background character. That's the goal. Invisibility. You no longer walk like someone with direction. You walk like someone with purpose, but without speed. Not too fast, not too slow. Just enough to blend in with everyone else wandering between stalls and shadows. That's the secret here. Everyone's tired. Everyone's cold. Everyone's just trying to make it through the day without getting robbed sick or publicly insulted by a merchant with rotting teeth. You can do tired. You've been practicing. Your body has changed. Not drastically, but noticeably. You've lost weight. Not much to lose to begin with, but now your ribs make guest appearances when you change in the dark. Your hands are rougher, cracked, permanently dirty under the nails. You tried to clean them with ditch water once. That was a mistake you only made once. Your hair is constantly damp. Your feet are sore. Your breath smells like pickled cabbage and suffering. But people have stopped looking at you with suspicion. Now they don't look at you at all. Progress. Your clothes help. That scratchy tunic you bartered for muddy, enough now to look authentic. The cloak you found draped over a fence post. It stinks of sheep and ash, but nobody questions it. You even added a patch to your sleeve, not because it was torn, but because everyone else has patches. Your face soot, on purpose. Clean faces are suspicious. Clean faces mean coin. And you're playing broke. Broke is safe. You've learned what not to say. No okay. No sure. No makes sense. No thanks. You say very well. You nod. You grunt. You mumble blessings in terrible Latin. You say aye when someone says something you think might be a question. You say nay when they frown. You don't speak unless spoken to. And even then, you wait an extra beat. Just long enough to seem slow, not strange. Strange gets noticed. Slow gets ignored. You can live with ignored. There's a moment at the baker's stall. You're waiting behind a woman with 3 children and no shoes. She gets her bread and moves on. You ask for a half loaf. You don't haggle. You point. You hold out exact change. You even remember to say bless you and yours as you take it. The baker squints, then nods. He hands you the loaf. It's only slightly burnt. Victory. You eat sitting on a step near the friary wall. Your favorite spot. It's shaded in the afternoon, mostly dry. Only smells like cabbage half the time. A little girl drops a turnip nearby. You catch it before it hits the mud. Hand it back. She looks at you like you just saved her life. You smile just a little. She runs back to her mother. That's the closest you've come to being seen in days. It feels good. Then you remember. No smiling. You wipe it off your face and finish your bread. You even get used to the smells. Not used to like you enjoy them. Used to like you stop gagging. The tanner's pit. You just hold your breath and walk faster. The latrines, you avoid the wind and count steps. The butcher's alley, you keep your eyes up and your mouth shut. You're not brave. You're just trained, like everyone else. Someone calls you pilgrim. For the first time, it doesn't feel like a test. You nod. They ask where you're headed. You say Santiago. Then you add, eventually. They nod back. Everyone says eventually. They offer you a crust of bread. You thank them in the local dialect. Wrong verb tense, but close enough. They don't correct you. You sit for an hour, listening, not talking. They don't ask questions. You don't offer answers. You just are. And that's new. That's peaceful. For a moment, you believe you belong. Then someone sneezes near you, and you flinch. The old instinct flares up. Pandemic training. Too modern. Too fast. Too wrong. You cough to cover it. Nobody notices. Still dangerous. You breathe slowly, reminding yourself. You're not there. You're here. In a time when sneezing is normal, when death is casual, when life is hard, you've accepted the rules. You've learned the rhythm. You've survived the first wave of mistakes. And now you know how to vanish. You're still not one of them. Not really. You miss toothpaste, and ice, and hot showers, and texting someone just to say, this sucks. You miss being understood, not just your words, your world, but you're not dead. You're not sick. You're not in a ditch. And when someone says, God keep you stranger, you nod like you believe it. Maybe you do. A little, or maybe you're just good at pretending. Either way, you're still here. You lie awake on a bed made of straw that generously calls itself a bed. It crinkles every time you move. The room, or stall, or corner of someone's stable. You're not sure anymore. Smells like wood smoke, spoiled turnips, and something faintly rodent-like. Your cloak is damp from the knees down. You've stopped asking why. You try to shift your body to a spot that isn't stabbing you with a straw stalk. It's impossible. You've accepted that comfort, like cleanliness and personal space, is a thing of the past. You close your eyes. You try to think of home. Not people, not places, objects. A faucet. You miss a faucet. A metal pipe you could turn and it would pour out water. Clean, cold, instant water. No hauling, no boiling, no suspicion. You could drink it straight, splash it on your face, let it run. You think about your toothbrush, your shampoo, the absurd luxury of a single bar of soap with a scent that didn't involve tallow. You think about socks and being dry, and the miracle of deodorant, and then predictably, a rooster crows. You groan and sit up. It's morning again. You're still here. Let's do a head count. You've survived cold disease, hunger, and at least 2 close encounters with suspicion that could have ended with you being publicly dunked in a river while people shouted about demons. You've scavenged for food, faked Latin, told lies so many times they feel like memories, and buried everything about yourself that wouldn't make sense in a world where the word Tuesday is met with blank stares. You've learned that you can in fact sleep through Bell's fleas and the soft sound of a rat chewing something probably important nearby. You've earned your place here, not as a resident, not as a respected figure, as something else, tolerated. And in the 14th century, that's the closest thing to peace. Your days have become a quiet pattern. Wake with the bells. Drink thin broth at the priory if they'll have you. Avoid eye contact with the merchant whose daughter you accidentally insulted by using the wrong word for pretty. Help unload something heavy for someone in exchange for a piece of something edible. Avoid the baker who still suspects you of something, though you're not sure what. Eat on a step. Work until your arms burn. Sleep wherever you can. Repeat. You're not a pilgrim anymore. Not really. You're something else. A drifter. A placeholder. A character without a backstory. And weirdly, that's working. You've become adept at not being noticed. You don't speak unless you must. You don't gesture unless you've seen someone else do it first. You don't smile unless someone else does. And when someone looks at you for a second too long, you cough and walk away. Not fast, just enough. Always enough. You've learned the real rules of medieval life. not the laws on parchment, the unspoken ones. Don't look too clean. Don't speak too clearly. Don't know too much. Don't stand out. You pass a man in the market today. He doesn't say anything, just nods. Not in greeting, in recognition. He's seen you before, and he doesn't remember from where. That's perfect. You're becoming a shadow that people have walked past enough to stop seeing. That's what safety looks like now. You think about all the things no one warned you about. Not just the lack of toilets or the bad bread, the silence, the slowness, the way people just exist here, without urgency, without constant noise. No radios, no engines, no text messages, just bells, hooves, breathing, and the creak of a world that doesn't care if you keep up. There's a kind of stillness in that. Not peace, not exactly, but something close. You've stopped missing music. You've stopped missing glass. You've stopped expecting to be comfortable. You live moment to moment. And in some strange, slightly tragic way, you've adapted. You understand now what most people don't about history, that no one lived it. They survived it. They didn't know they were medieval. They weren't actors in a drama. They were just people, trying to make it to nightfall without starving, freezing, or losing a child. They laughed less, worked more, prayed not because they were holy, but because hope was the only thing they could afford. And now you're one of them, not in birth, but in rhythm. You lie down on the straw again. It's damp. It stinks. But your pouch is still under your arm. Your knife is still in your hand. You didn't get robbed today. You didn't get questioned. You didn't get sick. You didn't get seen. You've become what you needed to be, forgettable. And for the first time in weeks, you realize something. You've stopped looking for a way back. Not because you don't want one, because if you keep hoping, you'll start making mistakes. And in this world, mistakes cost blood. You'll keep surviving, keep blending, keep telling your story. A pilgrim on the road to somewhere. Eventually, in this century, you are no one. And no one is safest of all.